Now we're back on Sam, Mike and Don. We thought we had a technical glitch. We did, but luckily we've saved it to a secondary server. And we're back with the great Andrew Bolt and Mike and Don. Now, Don, you say you've been excluded from any of this.
Well, I have.
Go right ahead, please. Off you go.
The voice of moderation
this is part
excluded.
2 of the Bolt Report on Sam, Mike and Don.
Will you shut up? Andrew, you
Is it
started.
like this every week?
Just don't be like him, Andrew. I was on a roll then, and you butted in
on
again.
the roll of 2 words, you were.
Until he rudely
Go ahead.
interrupted. Andrew, you started as a sports reporter.
Not
age?
Yeah, not immediately. I started as a cadet, courts and all that, but then got into sports.
Into sports. So do you still take an interest in sport?
Oh, yeah. But
Okay.
I'm not like Mike. Mike would remember every play.
Yeah,
I'd look at it, and the next day I couldn't remember what I saw.
He's a prostitute as far as football goes.
He's a what?
But
What is he?
Prostitute, because you live and breathe football. You've got nothing else in your life. Andrew.
Coming from the rounded Don Scott.
Andrew, what do you make of the cricketers that came out last week? 2 of them, 2 Victorians, who said they were mentally fragile and needed a break from the game. And actually,
Maxwell and Pekoski. I think it is brave of them, and I think to admit it, that takes a bit of guts. And if they need a break, they need a break. That said, I also admire cricketers who, because we all have stuff, there's been times I've gone through pretty tough times too. And I also admire people that plough on, do it, and keep doing it, and bite stiff upper lip and all that, and go through it. But that said, that's not for everyone. Sometimes I'm told I'm too tough and unsympathetic, but...
Who tells you
okay,
that, Andrew?
hang on. But getting onto these two...
You do.
Getting onto those 2 in particular, they're aspiring.
This is not...
I don't know their background.
This is not his area of expertise.
Well, then,
but it's sport.
I'm asking an opinion.
But it's not his area of expertise.
I don't know what those 2 guys are battling, so I'd be very loath to comment on them personally.
Do you ever think they're going to reach their pinnacle, like represent Australia at a top level in their sport?
I don't see why they can't. One did.
I would like to be playing against
Would you?
them.
Is any further questions on
No,
notice?
but before when Andrew said before about getting into trouble with the public or the fallout from what you write,
social media.
What's it like at home with Sally? You've got 3 kids, and Sally, who was an ex-journo. What do you ever talk at home about what you write and the fallout from that?
Oh, Sally's my closest confidant, so absolutely. Yeah.
Does she counsel you about views or
sometimes suggests that I put in a paragraph here or there to moderate something or show the other side or a bit that I've missed. Yeah, absolutely.
And the kids?
Less so. They, I think, they've always been a bit worried about living in my shadow and all that kind of stuff. So... And they've got their own interests. We don't live in each other's pockets, but no, they've been always with me. They've never said, sometimes it's been tough on them.
Does the Bolt surname...
But they've never said, don't do this or don't do that.
So the Bolt surname caused them any angst at school?
Well, as I tell them, there's the rough and the smooth. You get good stuff with that and you get bad stuff and you just suck it up and you can't just say it's all the negative without concentrating on the positive.
It's a very good question, Mick. A very good question. And taking that further, the political landscape in America is absolutely so polarised that the left push up against the right and attack them in restaurants and go and picket outside their houses, and they make their life a nightmare. Have you found, even to a small degree, people who disagree with you politically have caused you angst to a degree that's not acceptable?
Well, I've had the death threats and all that kind of stuff, needed to upgrade security and move my family out of home once and from one threat and all that. And it's not nice. I mean, I've been physically attacked in the street and at one occasion by some on the far left, activists with their faces masked, and that kind of thing is not nice. No. And there are people on the left who seem to think...
that's fair game.
Well, not just that. There's an absolutism. It really is weird, Look, if you don't like what I say, fine, have your own point of view, that's fine. And there's plenty in the media that will give the other side of the argument, so that's fine. But some people in the left seem to think you shouldn't have any opinion at all. And they confront you in the street or whatever. And I just think, I just think, how stupid, how intolerant. But that said, I'm not going to pretend I'm a martyr. I mean, the interactions in the street, I mean, just coming here, someone, was very nice to me in the street. So, 99 times out of 100, it's pleasant.
Is that right? 99 out of 100?
Well, let's say, I don't know, 59 out of 60 then, okay? 59 out of 60 is actually quite good.
So the overwhelming mood in the street is
That's
supportive.
the rank and file.
No, people, look, if they don't like... If you don't like someone, I don't go up to someone in the street and say, look, Martin Flanagan, you're an idiot. Your work's a joke. I mean, just leave people, be. They've got to have a private life.
I had that.
People very rarely come up, and I can speak personally about this, very rarely come up and they just don't speak to you or they ignore you. They very rarely come up and say, hey, listen, I think you're a dickhead and I don't like you. People just don't want to confront other people.
Maybe
some people do.
Yeah. Maybe there's a number of them have seen the video of what happened to the Antifa protesters.
You're susceptible.
Who confronted me.
You're susceptible to criticism, Andrew. Why do you keep going then?
Well, some things are very important, Don.
Like what?
Well,
soul.
Take the Pell case that we discussed before, George Pell. I see there's someone who I think is unfairly convicted. And I reckon I've thought to myself, if I don't say anything, no one will. And this is just wrong. It's absolutely wrong. And nor can we have the kind of justice where someone's convicted because of the vibe or because, the evidence, because the atmosphere has been poisoned. And if you don't stand against that, they'll come for you next.
But you say wrong. It's not wrong, is it? It's just you have a different opinion.
Yeah, my opinion is that it's wrong.
Yeah, but
based on the evidence.
But that doesn't mean it's no. The evidence, the people.
No,
who
of
made
course
the,
it can be wrong.
The people
I
who
can
made
be
the
wrong.
judgment heard every word of evidence.
Yeah, and they still can be wrong, Mike.
But did you hear every word of evidence?
That's why it's going to the High Court. No, there's a transcript out there. This is one of the things. The man who gave the sole accuser of Pell, right, and all the other witnesses were for Pell, said there were holes in the evidence and all that kind of stuff. The sole accuser gave evidence. We still don't know his name. We're not allowed to reveal it if we do know it. I actually do know it, but we're not allowed to reveal it. We're not allowed to reveal, I guess, certain circumstances about him that might make you think twice. We're not allowed to even know what exactly he said in the witness box. Can you believe that? How's that justice?
I thought his evidence is not public.
You were about to say his evidence was great, but you haven't seen it.
No, I didn't
You don't
say
know
that.
it.
All I said,
no one's seen it.
The only thing I've said, and to you, Sam,
Yes, I might
all I've
disgrace-
ever
my
said on
disgrace.
this, on what I know as a layman and not the full picture, I just defer to the court system.
Well, you've got to defer to the court system in one sense. One, in the absence of your interest to find out for yourself, yes. And secondly, you've got to actually abide by the court judgment. Otherwise, there's no rule of law. I agree with you on that too. But on the second, not the first. But the point is, when you look at the evidence and you see it doesn't stack up, you've got to say something. We're not all suddenly automatons that we think we hand over our judgment to other people, even no matter how fallible they are. There's been plenty. Look, the AFL Tribunal has made judgments that you've criticised. Why don't you observe your own rule and say, no, if the AFL Tribunal has said this or that, then they're clearly right every single time, but you don't.
Because I've been there and heard the times I've criticised them, I've been there and I've been witness to what's been said.
I've had a look at what's said. Well, look, you have a look at the High Court, the Supreme Court the Court of Appeal judgment. You look at the evidence they present, and it doesn't hang together itself. So you can save yourself the bother of all the evidence. You can just look at what their judgment is and the dissenting judgment, and you will find it does not make sense.
How many times have we chatted about tribunal decisions here on this very forum this year? And you've said, I don't agree with that. You haven't heard any of the evidence other than what's been reported.
No, but I've seen the event.
Well, you've read it.
I've seen the event.
That's right.
No one saw what happened with Pell and the two choir boys.
So
right?
you have a difference of opinion about what the tribunal said and what you thought.
I'm dealing with what I see on the football field and on TV and on replays.
The Pell thing, if you have been paying it, I'm not saying this about you personally, if anyone's been paying attention, what's going on with Pell, what Andrew just said then, is exactly what's going on with Trump and Ukraine. We've got a whistleblower who's not identified. They won't bring up anything. No one knows exactly what was said. It's all hearsay. It's all mumbo jumbo. Can I ask you just finally on this, has your employer, even the Murdochs, increased your personal security and you're guaranteed by extra surveillance on your safety?
Yeah, they did. They said they pay for it, but then I forgot to send them the bills, and now I don't dare put them all in. But yeah, they upgraded. They've been very good. The Murdochs have been really good.
Yep.
I tell you what, a lot of people hang whatever it is over the Murdochs, and you just think there aren't many news organisations in this country that allow a debate like you get in the Murdoch papers. Now, people say, it's a right-wing thing, like Mike just did, but in fact, if you have a look, probably I'm in a minority. There are not many conservatives in the Murdoch papers.
Really?
That's absolutely correct. But there are some. And when you actually compare it with, say, the ABC or the Age or the Sydney Morning Herald, that is actually very, very unusual. And I think it's a real worry. And you must contemplate what would happen if the Murdochs sold out or whatever, what the debate in this country would be like.
Where did you form your conservative views? Where did they come from? Your
Seeing as
upbringing?
Well, I'm not. Mike would say I'm ultra-conservative. I'm not. I worked for the Labor Party twice. I come from that background. But it's more, Don, basically, not totally, obviously, but most of us want to go the same direction, want the same result.
Of what?
If you want a pretty nice country, you want a pretty free country, you want people
Harmonious.
treated well, you don't want the poor too poor, you want to help them, you want, all that kind of stuff. It's how you go about it. Now, I've come to learn that a lot of what people want to plan doesn't work out that well. And you know yourself, you pack for a picnic and you probably forget the corkscrew. But there's some people that think they can reorganise society from ground basis overnight and it still work perfectly when it won't. And I've gone to places like I got such a shock, places where revolutionaries thought we're going to make a real new, better world, like Cambodia.
Like where? Okay, Cambodia.
Right? And then you see a pyramid of skulls and you see the torture centre in a former high school in Phnom Penh, and you see what they try to do, because not everyone does agree. And when people don't agree, what happens next? Well, violence.
So the former Prime Minister, Paul Keating, said we should be more compliant and get on with China. Just today said that, or yesterday, as a former correspondent in Hong Kong. How do you think that's going to end up? They're eventually going to belt the living suitcase out of them in Hong Kong, aren't they, the Chinese?
I think it's just terrible. I think Hong Kong's days as the Pearl of the Orient, the stable financial capital, one of the financial capitals of Asia, that's probably now going.
So eventually, and I agree with that, eventually what'll happen, it'll just be a communist-ruled enclave.
Well, their basic law to allow people some limited right to vote, but in fact that's been a complete farce. China handpicks the bosses. Free speech, that'll also go. That was under a deal that lasted only about 50 years. That's going to go. China will outlast and then take over formally, and there will not be a separate law for Hong Kong unless China gets so scared by what they're seeing right now that they back off. It depends a little bit. There was a really interesting leak the other day that you probably saw to the New York Times, 403 pages from inside the Chinese Communist Party about what the Communist Party is doing with the Muslims in China.
Yep,
that leak is unprecedented, and that does suggest that maybe, just maybe, there's an internal opposition to Xi Jinping, the dictator.
Hang on.
And if he goes, maybe things change.
The Muslims, the Uyghur people?
Yeah.
So wasn't that the basis of our two diplomats being not given a visa to go over to China? Didn't they criticise the fact
They
that...
criticised exactly what's happening to the Uyghurs, 900,000 people at least.
And they weren't allowed to go over on the basis that they criticised the regime?
Correct.
It wouldn't happen here, would it? Would it?
Well, you'd hope not.
Andrew, can I ask you about your relationship with Rupert Murdoch? You in regular dialogue with him or not?
Oh, not that regular. When he comes over, I usually see him, but not that regular.
Do you talk about topics?
We gossip. Rupert Murdoch is he is a confirmed gossip. He loves gossip. He loves to know what's going on, and we just talk about what's going on.
And would he ever subtly or overtly try to influence you or other columnists?
No, we talk.
Well, I haven't asked the question yet.
Yeah, it just subtly tried to influence me or other columnists. No.
About when there's an election coming?
When there's an election coming? No. I tell you, how it works is like this. I'll give you an anecdote. We once it was a bunch of News Corp executives, right? And we're going to have a dinner with Rupert after some meeting. I'm sitting around, I'm early, and so are most of the people there. I haven't got a tie on. Most of the people do have a tie on. Rupert comes in without a tie, sits down, looks to me and says, I love it about Australians, the informality. Look, all these people without ties. In the instant that he sat down, everyone had removed their tie. Listen, if you're influenced by Rupert Murdoch, it's because you've suddenly realised that he knows more than you, or you're a coward, right? I've had disagreements with him on global warming. He went through a period where he said, give the planet the benefit of the doubt. And I said, that's rubbish. Give people the benefit of the doubt. And he didn't sack me. Rupert Murdoch believes in debate. This is what I admire about him. He does believe in debate, and you see it in his newspapers. He believes in debate. He will not be bullied. I've seen him stand against advertisers, like you remember, I think Coles Myers or something, were pulling ads when Terry McCrann was talking about shenanigans there. Rupert Murdoch just said, shrug, let him, and they came back.
Did you see the
I think he is a guy that many Australians in our class, of the media class, do not understand properly how important he has been to debate in this country.
So he doesn't have too much influence on the world affairs.
No.
Did you see the thinly veiled expose on the Murdoch family on HBO called Succession?
My public stance is I have not seen it, but gee, it's good, isn't it?
They Foxtel.
It's a joke. It's nothing like the Murdochs I know. Nothing.
Exactly. Well, I don't know that, but Foxtel were going to put it on, and then or weren't going to put it on in deference to Rupert Murdoch, and then they were threatened to being sued, so they put it on.
I don't know. You're telling me stuff I don't know. I tell you what Rupert's view, as I understand the bloke, would be. He'd look at that and say, does it make money? Will it make us money? He's not like that. I mean, the rubbish they've put up with. And if you think Succession is the Murdoch, it's what some leftist writers think is Murdoch. But, Brian Cox is such a great actor that he'll carry any rubbish script off and get away with make it a good entertainment. The Murdochs aren't like that. If you met Lachlan Murdoch, a decent bloody guy, a really decent guy.
Well, I want to ask you one thing about, have you written a column about Bellamy's being taken over by the Chinese?
No, I haven't.
Why not?
How many issues are there out there?
Well, I mean, I would rather you refrain from whacking the ABC every second day.
Then don't read my column on Thursday. It's a cracker about this guy that the ABC... This Aboriginal historian, so-called.
Yeah. Well, leave that to one side. Leave that to one side. Why would you not talk about Bellamy's? This is a major industry in Australia, and Josh Frydenberg, as I understand it, overruled the Foreign Investment Review Board and allowed another thing to be sold off to the Chinese.
Mate, I can't write about everything.
Yes, you can.
I can't write about everything, Mike. I mean, I'm one person with a limited amount of time, and it does interest me because on the wider issue, I've not been silent, and that has been China's influence in Australia. If you think that I've suddenly, been closing my eyes to that, you haven't read anything or listened to anything I've said in the last year. I think it is really, really worrying. China's influence, worrying.
So where do you think we're headed in this... woke society that we're venturing into? I see
that gets a run every week, doesn't it?
Tell me, you give me your opinion, Donald.
On what?
I'm about to tell you. They now in Britain have just decided that we're going to have gender neutral drinks. We're not going to have things called Bloody Marys because that's...
No, is that true?
That is. We're not going to have bourbon called Jack Daniels because Jack refers to a man and Bloody Mary is synonymous with a woman. They are now having gender-neutral names for drinks and they're cutting out anything that refers to gender. How far would you like to go in this society before someone says enough's enough?
We've got bigger
I
issues
listened to
than
a
that.
lady on
Well,
the...
of course, Mick, but this is where it's headed, this nonsense that we put up with every day about thinking, shit, I've said the wrong thing.
The sensitivity industry is just amazing. It really is so
Are you
poor.
still
So
in-
it's going to come
even
a
having
rule
a-
one day, Don, that you can't yell at your players as a coach like you yelled at yours.
Even having a cocktail, Donald, they say
Oh,
that.
yeah,
Mick, you think I make this up? They said you shouldn't call
Do
it
we
a
care about that? I'm more interested in seeing...
Of course we don't, but this dominates some of the news broadcasts
what else dominates
overseas.
it is Israel. Are you still in Israel Folau's corner?
Well, it depends what you mean by his corner. I mean, the way you referred to that earlier, it was like this whole, everything about Israel Folau I endorse, instead of narrowing it down to what the issue was. Should a bloke be sacked for what for quoting the Bible when it's got nothing to do with whether he is a good rugby player? And I think, no, I think that's absurd, absolutely absurd. Do I agree with what he said then, and do I agree with what he said the other day? Clearly not. I'm not a Christian, and I certainly don't think that the bushfires were caused by man's sin against God. I certainly don't believe that. So when you say when I'm in his corner, what do you exactly mean?
Well, you have been in his corner, haven't
I've
you?
been in this corner. I don't think he should be sacked for being a Christian, no.
So
do you think he should be sacked for being a Christian? You hesitate
wait
on
a
that.
sec. Well,
That's
because I
pretty
want
poor.
I want to consider the opinion. I think he should have been sacked because he broke the rules of his employers.
Which was?
Well, about not saying things on
Politically
sexist-
incorrect
yes,
things.
Yeah. Isn't that,
Yeah,
isn't
but
that why he was dismissed?
Do you really think?
That's freedom of speech.
What has that got to do? What has that got to do with his ability to play rugby or rugby
okay.
league? I
Yeah.
mean, I just think this is absurd. And there's been a real tendency for bosses to be given an almost untrammeled power to dictate what you say, even at home or in the street or in any context, nothing to do with your employment. And I just think that can't be right.
If Andrew Bolt had said what Israel Folau said, would you have got the sack?
No,
No,
of course not.
you wouldn't have. If you'd written a column expressing the same things that Folau did about gays and gay marriage,
I'd have been criticised, probably been dragged through all sorts of tribunals and all that. But if in the end...
Counselled.
And counselled, or I don't know. But the point is, I don't think he should be sacked for his opinion when he's employed to play rugby league or rugby union. I think this is a nonsense.
I feel sorry for the poor guy because he's getting airplay over what he said on Sunday. If you didn't give him airplay, we wouldn't be talking about it.
Well, it was probably to a congregation of about 20 people, and suddenly it's a massive issue. What a disgrace. So it comes down almost to thought crimes, Don. I mean, what he says in a room full of fellow worshippers suddenly means he should be dragged backwards over hot coals and banned from playing any sport ever again. I mean, what sort of country is this?
how did it get out
I don't
there?
even care how it gets out. This is just nuts. This is
social
just
media
crazy.
people who want to be aggrieved
What,
at
in-
every single thing
what,
that they say and
social
they
media people
report it.
in his congregation.
Well, what, do you think they're not people in his congregation wouldn't have social media access?
You know,
No, they would, but I mean, why would they? Is that where it came from? From one of his own?
Yeah.
someone put it on YouTube or something like that, or Facebook. Yeah, but I mean, look, are we going to get equally now hot under the collar, Mike, for Adam Band saying that the fires were caused by Scott Morrison?
Well, he got
I mean, that's
he got
even
whacked over
crazier.
that.
That's
Yeah.
even a crazier view and nastier, much nastier. Are we going to say, well, Adam Band should be kicked out of Parliament? And that's a far more. He had a far more public platform with far more public influence. Being a politician, should we ban him from Parliament?
But hasn't he been whacked extensively?
That's all that's needed. We've got free speech. That's all that's needed. Someone puts a view, someone else puts another view. That is how we should govern things.
Wow. Right, how are we going, Sammy?
Well, I think it's good.
Do you, Don?
it's
good.
Well, thanks for that commendation. You got any other pressing questions you'd like to ask Andrew Bolt?
Can I ask, while you're thinking about it, Andrew, we're going to get
thanks,
on to this.
Mike.
No, but you're ruminating about it. Prince Andrew,
Yeah.
your namesake. Yeah.
There you are.
Who would...
I once travelled in Germany, so I guess that makes me Adolf Hitler's namesake too in your eyes.
That was
Jeez.
a bit loose, a bit flippant.
God.
That was flippant, please. What's your view about the fact that his considered decision to do that interview?
I like the idea of him giving an interview because we need to know what a senior member of the royal family, his connection with a pedophile, and his answer to allegations that he 3 times slept with a girl pimped out to him by this pedophile.
Do we have to know, Andrew?
But I have to say that when you go into an interview like that, you better come up with some pretty good answers. You've got to have to researched it and given a good defence. And I thought what he did was just rubbish. I thought he played down the significance of what had happened. His denials were not persuasive. I think he looked like a guy that was born into privilege and hasn't taken advice because he's too up himself to take it. He did himself a lot of damage.
So what would you say to the political bias that they honed in on Prince Andrew, and yet Bill Clinton they haven't laid a finger on, who went on Epstein's plane, the Lolita Express, 24 times. 27 times. Why wouldn't they hone in on Bill Clinton? You know why they wouldn't.
Did they, Andrew,
corrupt.
or not?
No.
They didn't.
Some organisations have, but they're not New York Times, not Washington Post, not the mainstream media.
Don't even mention it.
He's on the flight
corrupt.
records. He didn't. He says I think he says he's taken 4 flights in a particular year, but the flight record suggests he's taken 27 flights.
And the 4 flights.
And not only that, don't forget, Sam, this is a bloke who's been credibly accused of rape in the past, not of minors,
and
of course.
impeached for sexual harassment.
Yeah, well,
it's impeached for it.
Yeah, well, consensual sex with a starstruck young intern, you might think that's unpleasant and all that, but it's not against the law.
But hang just a minute, Andrew. That's not necessarily why he's impeached about, because it's a sexual
he lied.
act. It's because it might be considered he could be treacherous in the fact that that woman who has access to the office might
Blackmail him.
Blackmailing. That was it wasn't treacherous. Blackmail was the thing. But the 4 times that Clinton says he was on the plane is when he had his security forces and the his protection outfit with him. The other times he went apparently on his own and didn't take them with him, so that's how we got out of the fact that they were the official times he went, because he had his security deployment with him. That's what they say. But no one investigates it.
Clinton is yesterday's man, but Prince Andrew is current, so that's the way I look at it. What's the point?
What do you mean he's current?
It's in the news now.
Prince Andrew, he is current. The girls come out and named it. Nothing's happened with regard to Clinton, and he's yesterday's man.
And the woman on, was it ABC, Amy Klobuchar, who said that they ABC over there in America, American Broadcasting Company, they suppressed her story on Prince Andrew and Bill Clinton. She said we had it on tape from the people, from the girls. They interviewed them. After 11 years, the girl finally did an interview, and we had it all on tape, she said, with Prince Andrew, Clinton, but no one ever asked Clinton about it.
And one of the reasons, that she said the ABC executives stifled it. Now, I don't know what their reasons were. Maybe they didn't think it stood up. But I thought it was interesting. One of the reasons she gave, she said, the bosses were worried that we wouldn't get an interview with Will and Kate, so they didn't report, in her view, a story about a billionaire pedophile with Prince Andrew.
That's right.
Amazing.
Where does your lot?
That's the media, mate. I have no respect for the media.
You have no respect for the institution that you work in.
No respect for the media as a class of people. No,
really.
No, not at all. Not at all.
So why do you stay in it?
For 2 years, for instance, well, because I have respect for what I personally am trying to do, and I have respect for individuals, and
I have respect for the publication, but not.
I have respect for some of the publications. I certainly have respect for the publications I work for.
Not
you ever
the
look at Sky News? You look at Sky News, right? Right now, going back to the Pell thing, I don't dog with a bone, but every time I used to say, look, there are problems with the evidence of Pell, we would get massive attack from internet groups, and we lost money with advertisers. Now, of course, we're seeing a lot of people, even the Saturday paper, which is a far left rag, say, hey, listen, there's something really wrong with the Pell verdict, very wrong with the Pell verdict. And a lot of people are coming out and saying that now too. So it's becoming, and I suspect it may well be overturned. But the point is, when it counted, Sky News lost a lot of money because I said what I said, and they didn't stop me. And I think I have a lot of respect for Sky, which, may I say, is owned by the Murdochs and others.
Well, can I ask you about one of your fellow commentators? What's your view about Alan Jones?
I like Alan Jones. I mean, there are things that I strongly disagree with him. I think he's completely wrong on fracking. I think that's been a very bad call on his part. But what I admire is his courage. I believe he says what he believes, and I think he's been unfairly maligned.
He's not a bully?
He picks on people who perhaps deserve to be picked on in his view. And he's been bullied in turn. No one seems to complain about that. He has his advertisers being picked on. He has people trying to drive him off the air. He's been picked on as well. The point is, there's not just Alan Jones in the media landscape. There's an ABC, there's a Channel 9, there's a Channel 7, there's a Channel 10, there's an SBS, there's an Umbrella, there's a Junkie, there's a BuzzFeed, there's a Fin Review, there's the Murdoch papers, there's all sorts, there's the FM radios, there's the Carl Sandlands. He is one view among many. But the point is, there is now a concerted attempt to pick on this one guy and drive him off the air when I hear far, far worse things said and done by the media. And I think really what it is an attempt for a conservative cleansing. They pick on him first, they'll probably come for me next, Rowan Dean, that's what's happening.
So you said he was a piece of crud too.
Yes, you think he's a victim? Alan Jones is a victim?
No, I think he's a victim of a campaign to drive him off the air. How can you doubt it?
Well, maybe because he created the need to do that.
No, there's not a need to do any such thing, Mike. There's not a need to do any such thing. He gives his point of view. I think he's more often right than wrong, and right on very important issues. Why would you drive off the air one person? Why don't you simply turn off the dial?
The issue is...
If you don't like him, don't listen to him. Yeah, why do you want him removed from the airwaves so that other people can't listen to him?
No, I don't care whether he's on or not because he's in Sydney, right? But I mean, what he did over the Opera House situation... I
disagreed with it.
Yeah.
And I wrote that I disagreed with it. So I don't then say I disagree with Alan Jones, so therefore he should be off the air. I mean,
even his own people think that he's been guilty of bullying.
No, what his own people? I used to be for 2GB until early this year. I don't think he should be. What people are you talking about? I mean, just because there's a media class, they're not the public, Mike.
You don't like the media much, do you?
No, because really, there's a lot of mutual backslapping and there's groupthink. The group think just drives me nuts, right? We've got to have room for debate like we're having right now and let the public decide. What I hate are the activists that come in and say, listen, I don't like, Alan Jones in this case, so I won't let the public decide because you know what I'll do? I'll drive him off the air so no one can listen to him. Who are they to decide what other people may not listen to?
Don, for the sake of our
listeners, what benefit?
For the sake of our listeners, could we... Well, actually, I was speaking. You are welcome to speak, Don. I was just, for the sake of people listening, I think fracking... Do you know what fracking is? I think, it's when you force air into the soil to remove the oil from it, isn't it?
Water with a number of chemicals to fracture the rocks,
so that the oil
and release the oil or gas that you're going for.
Yes.
And it's made America. This technology has made America nearly self-sufficient on fuel.
And why is it dangerous?
Power prices right down, and therefore and in part the economy right up.
And why would you disagree? Why don't people think we should frack?
Well, there's this Luddite thing that anything projected, injected into the ground, it's got to contaminate water, it's going to create all sorts of shocking things, and soon we'll have 2 heads and 3 gonads.
Don, would you go ahead, please?
Well, actually, I've got to take you up on that point because they've done it up on at the Queensland border there, and the farmer in particular who was documented, said that his place is now useless. They've done the fracking and whatever else. Now he's not getting the water through, or it cannot be used, and his farm is now useless.
Well, now, actually, the fracking occurs way under the water table.
I understand.
And there's been a lot of misinformation. Like there was one New South Wales Greens MP who went on the Condamine and set fire to the river, saying, look, all this gas that has bubbled to the surface, that's fracking. Isn't it shocking? Well, no, that part of the river has been known for decades to be a natural leaker of natural gas. It's not so.
So I went...
In fact, most of the scientific studies say there isn't this.
Final question without notice?
From you.
Oh, no, not from me. I was going to say I went to the Hall Gallon fight. And
who won?
It finished in a draw.
No, I know, but who won in your view?
Probably Hall might have got the decision. One judge gave him the decision, a bit like the Pell thing.
Gallon the decision, I thought.
What?
He did, yeah.
Yeah, one gave Gallon the decision.
Yes, something
two
like that.
Drew it equal.
So it was declared an official draw. I'm saying this.
How does that work, though?
Well, it's got to be a majority decision, bit like Pell. I'm suggesting you got another question.
No. I'm about to say goodbye to.
Yes, well, I think it's almost been a majority draw here.
No, he's won.
Between you and
No.
Has he?
That's the second time.
No, we've had a debate. We don't win. It's for people listening to decide for themselves.
And it's been
Hey,
affable.
Andrew,
and
I'd like to
pleasant.
congratulate Michael too.
What on?
Well, you haven't walked out, thrown a tizzy. And
Well, you ought to talk. Jeez. Hey, Andrew, it's been compelling. We've all enjoyed it. I'm pleased that you came.
Normally, I'm more relaxed than this.
And I would genuinely say that my tweet
Apologise.
about you was ill-considered and
apologise.
Oh, that's
now.
very kind of you to say.
No, it's
so.
not. But I mean, I can't even remember doing that. But it would have been done in
Twitter is a
fit of-
sewer. It
yes.
sucks
Is
your
this
brains
an
out and
official
makes you
apology?
the
Yeah,
worst
well,
of it.
this is an apology.
Well, say it.
Well, I apologise for that.
Well done.
That is very
tweet.
kind of you.
And I
tell you, I genuinely appreciate that apology. I
Because
appreciate
Oh,
it.
hang on, boys.
Wait a sec,
Jeez, you're going to make me vomit.
Because
in a
my
minute.
relationship with Andrew goes back a long time.
Long
even
time.
To when he was,
All right.
when he found
you
himself.
got a violin,
Hey,
Don?
It goes back to the days when Mike used to come around to my office and say, could you not write about Islam again because I'm worried that my office will be blown
I
up.
did
And I was
say that.
thinking, Mike, if you really think that, then you should be encouraging me to think that, to put it out there that there's a problem here that needs fixing.
when you arrived at-
Instead, you were telling me to shut up.
Any final thoughts, Don?
no, I thought it's been most entertaining.
Have you got on with everyone and you've apologised
I've
to
sat
anyone?
on the fence. I've done a
Mate,
mic.
I love your yellow trousers. I wish I had the guts to...
Right, now
well, you
what
got
we do
guts in
is
here,
we
haven't you?
wind this up, boys. We wind this up with a Daddy Cool.